Hello and welcome to this episode of the Belair podcast. If you are interested in entrepreneurship, conscious business, or inspirational success stories, today's guest is going to be a real treat. He is an entrepreneur, TED speaker, and award-winning author who's been named USA Today's most connected millennial. His first book, 2 Billion Under 20, was voted the #1 entrepreneurship book of 2015. I was connected to this man through a mutual friend, Alex Kipp, and I really enjoyed just looking through everything that he's done, watching his TED Talk, and everything that he's going to create. So welcome to the show, Jared Kleinert.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Just trying to catch up to you so we could be beard brothers. But I got a long way to go.
You've got we were talking before, you've got the most epic one, man, the red beard. It's got to be done. It's going to be.
Yeah, having red hair and blue eyes is the rarest hair-eye combo. So maybe I should change my intro to be like, meet Jared, one of the people with the rarest hair-eye combos out there.
Yeah, totally, man.
Maybe that'd be fun.
But if you do it though, like with what you're doing with business and stuff, and you just have this big lumberjack beard, and you just have like an axe photo, you're just gonna be the most badass young guy. And when I was looking and researching what you're up to and what you've done already, and then we just jumped on the call and talked a little bit before, you're only 21.
I am only 21.
It's amazing, dude. It
feels good.
Yeah.
I'm an old soul.
What's that?
I said I'm an old soul. I know you're big
totally.
into spirit and all that. Like I'm definitely, like I feel like I'm an old soul in part because I've spent all my teens hanging out with people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. And so they've almost brainwashed me into this certain way of thinking about the world and about business and connecting with people and all that. And so, you can almost like program yourself into a new personality or a new way of thinking about things.
Yeah,
which I guess is part of what we're trying to do with all your listeners, trying to program them into a more positive mindset and way of thinking.
Absolutely, man. Well, when I started the podcast, the intention was just having conversations with the most high vibrational, like enlightened, conscious, or anybody just doing something good and positive, and to share their stories and their perspectives because it can be learned. And at such a young age, you've accomplished so much. So do you want to just kind of give us a quick rundown? Because it's a lot and it's very impressive, man, just so people can kind of, hear about all the amazing stuff you've done so far.
Yeah, so everything I do really revolves around identifying and connecting world-class millennials. And that has been shaped by past experiences, starting and failing to companies of my own at the beginning. I worked for 2 VC-backed startups in Silicon Valley, remotely from where I grew up in South Florida. And then I simultaneously started research on my first book called 2 Billion Under 20. And I also opened up my first successful business, which was a marketing and business development consulting firm called Kleinert Ventures. And so I've been using a lot of the research from meeting, befriending, sharing the stories of top performing young people with clients in marketing and business development work, helping them to have bigger product launches, helping them to reach more people with their high quality products and services. But really the meeting, befriending, uniting the voice, influence, and expertise of top performing young people is where I feel my gifts are best served. And it's where I've had the most impact on people, you could say. So that was my first stint of that was 2 Billion Under 20, which is a book that came out in July of 2015. As you mentioned in the intro, it did pretty well and was called the #1 entrepreneurship book of 2015, according to Axiom Business Book Awards. That book shared stories from 75 Olympians, entrepreneurs, singers, actors, scientists, nonprofit founders, all of whom were 20 and under at the time of writing their stories. And they would actually share their own first-person voices with us, and we would just bring together their voices. And so this next book, 3 Billion Under 30, is a very similar model, another 75 stories, but these ones touch on much different issues, and they also come from people who are 20 to 32 and range from like the founder of WordPress to your past guest, Sarah Ann Stewart, to like the 2-time defending fittest woman in the world, to professional athletes and a lot of others. Yes.
Oh,
yep.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay, man. Doing the show. You're doing all this and you're currently in a hostel in LA.
Yeah, that's the best thing is like, a lot of your listeners might be interested in lifestyle design. And so a lot of this work has actually led me into a lot of really interesting friendships and business relationships, but it's also allowed me to travel around the world and speak at different conferences, meet unique people. It's been a very fun ride. There's a lot to be learned from top performers, and I'm happy to share any and all learning lessons and kind of even how I was able to build those connections in the first place. Like all that is fair game. Feel free to fire away.
Yeah, man. Well, it's pretty incredible, and I think that one of the underlying factors here of just where you are is because you're looking at experts in NLP or neuro-linguistic programming. It just talks about kind of modeling excellence. So you're kind of seeing all these successful people, and it's kind of rubbing off. You're learning all these things sometimes consciously or unconsciously. So I guess I would ask, so what are some of the most important lessons that you've learned? Because you're doing it now. You're 21, and you're creating a lifestyle. You're not working 60 hours a week in a job just to get things. You have, it seems, balance and travel and joy and excitement and passion around your work. So what do you feel is most important for somebody who's starting out and they might not know where they want to go, but they know that they want to start living a life that
Sure.
a bit more freedom?
For anyone starting out, I think the biggest takeaway from the first book, and translates mostly for young people, but it can really translate for anyone who's a novice in their industry or a novice in a new project, is that we have more power than ever before. And what I mean by that is you have 2 or 3 generations ago, you would have projects like the Manhattan Project, where it took the work of 3 governments, 7 years, 130,000 people, and $26 billion by today's standards to create the first atomic bomb. And 2 generations later, I have a friend featured in our first book who in 2013 built a nuclear reactor in his garage for less than $5,000 with the help of like an online fuser community. And granted, it's not the same scale as like the atomic bomb that ended a world war, but it's still impressive nonetheless. And that jump is astonishing in terms of the ability to do things, to start businesses, to create nonprofits, to have connectedness to others, to your own thoughts, and so that's a huge game changer, right? Like, and some of the factors in that is like internet, where we are able to identify problems more easily than ever before. So we have news and media and social media that allows us to see what problems are bubbling up and what people care about. And this happens all in real time, whereas in the past, it was a lot harder to find these problems. And it was also harder to find all the resources that you would need to develop potential solutions to those problems. And meanwhile, we have that unlike ever before. The ability to problem solve and then actually have those problems implemented and heard is also different, whereas we're in more of a meritocracy than ever before. So it doesn't matter if you're young, it doesn't matter what gender you are, it doesn't matter where you live, as much as it used to. Work to do in some of those fronts. But for the most part, we live in a world where you can do things at a young age, or you can do things if you're a novice in your industry that just simply weren't possible before. So that's a huge game changer. That was the big question that came out of the first book, is like, why can we all do this? And like, why do young people hold more power than ever before? And it was a subject of a TED talk I gave at the end of last year as the book was coming out in 2015. And so that's a good starting point. And I think with 3 billion under 30, we're really looking at how do you have exponential success and impact in increasingly short amounts of time? Because whereas the first 75 people that I studied were all 20 and under time of writing. They'd done some cool stuff at a young age, but the outliers were in the sense of their youth. The youth is still the outlier, but we have people that are true millennials from like 19 to 32, and it's not that they've done things that were cool at a young age, which are impressive. It's like these people are literally running the planet in their various industries. And that's really interesting to study, because if you can, build WordPress, like one of our book contributors, Matt Mullenweg, in 13 years, like he started working on that in 19 and now he's 32. And in 13 years, his thing has gone from having more developers than users to powering 26% of the internet. A crazy exponential jump. Or being able to define an industry in a few years. Like these exponential jumps are really interesting to study. And the fact that everyone in 3 billion under 30 is so young and have only either been around for a couple decades or have been in their industry for 5 or 10 years and have had these kind of jumps, that becomes a really interesting way to study how to achieve exponential success and impact, regardless of your age and regardless of your industry. Just like, how do you make the next year your best? How do you make the next 5 years your best exponential years?
Right. That's all amazing. So what I'm hearing really is that, with technology and social networks and all of the resources that the average person could just connect to, you don't need a lot of money. You don't need a company. We can take an idea and bring it to life easier than ever before. One of the ones that I use and study is crowdfunding. So I've helped run a few successful campaigns, and I think that when that really catches on, you have the way that I break it down is 3 things. It's a good idea, right? So if you have a good idea, then you create amazing rewards, and you can create experience rewards as well. So even if it's like a new mug or an idea for something conscious or energy or tech or whatever, just create. Right. You could sell brownies if you want, but if the community supports it, that's it's already changing VC and investing and everything. So then you just got to get it out there to people who would be interested in it. And now the crowd and the people, if you have this great idea, and that's just one example.
Yeah, I'm about to pull out my wallet to like buy a brownie from you if you're selling brownies. I'm kind of hungry, but no, yeah, it's. I want people to know that it's approachable as well. You'll read in the book, and I get this from the book contributors themselves as they read all the other stories. They're like, how the hell did these people do this? There's no way I can do that. That's like a Snapchat celebrity saying that about a business leader saying that about a professional athlete. Like, even amongst peers, they think that it's not attainable, but it is attainable. In fact, many of our book contributors started out in worse circumstances than the average person would. And many of the people featured in 3 billion under 30 have been refugees of civil wars in their country, or they've been victims of rape and abuse and assault, or they've faced cancer, or they've gone through things that are not pleasant, and that would not only have you at a regular circumstance, but perhaps even less so, and kind of against all odds. And so it is very, for sure, and like anyone can have this kind of exponential impact and success. It just comes with a few key changes in how you look at the world and how you do things. So that, yeah.
Well, that's a good segue, kind of where you're going with it. What is it, what kind of underlying themes and what do you feel is most important? Like, is it the resources that are attainable, and what resources are they? Specifically, if there are some common ones, and also common mindsets on how they did that.
So by default, a lot of the people who have exponential success and impact do things untraditionally. And so they'll look at their industry, they'll look at what everyone else in the world is doing and do it differently. So a lot of people will pursue alternate education paths and not just go directly to a 4-year university, but they might take a gap year or two and go back, or they might skip college altogether, or they might create their own educational institute, like General Assembly. One of my book contributors is a co-founder of that. And even when you're approaching your new industry and thinking about like, okay, if I'm starting a podcast, how can I do it untraditionally, or how can I put myself in a position to have exponential success and impact? It's very hard to do that if you're doing what everyone else is doing. So by default, you have to kind of take yourself out of the norm and give yourself the ability to have some sort of scale. And that comes with taking an untraditional path. And we ate our own dog food with this book launch and published the book under our own publishing company. And so on the outside, it's a seemingly difficult decision on like, how do you traditionally publish? Do you not traditionally publish? Do you self-publish and go through Amazon? All that. And by default, most authors will like go and get a book deal with a traditional publisher, or they will self-publish on Amazon through CreateSpace and kind of try and like game the Amazon system. But when you look at kind of the first principles of like, what are your business goals? What are your mission goals? It made total sense for us to not go with the traditional publisher and instead create a new publishing company, print physical hardcovers ourselves through a group like an offset printer, which is the company that owns the physical printing machines, and then make a better product than publishers have, because we were able to hire like the best editors in the industry, the best designers, things like that. And now I'm applying all the leading marketing and business development campaigns to our book launch, which you can't do when you publish a book traditionally, just because there's certain parameters around doing so, and you're not aligning your profit with your purpose. So we did this ourselves, and my goal is to sell 100,000 copies this year of 3 Billion Under 30, which would not be possible if we went through a traditional publisher. And that would definitely equate to scale, right? Like that is an exponential book, given the fact that like I think it's 0.7% of books sell that many copies. So it's a very low number. But again, like the only way we have even the slightest chance to accomplish that is because we took an untraditional path. Right. And so there's things like that. Always valuing and setting yourself up to collaborate instead of compete is another one. So with the book, my success and the book's success builds on the success of 75 top performing millennials. And so I'm not competing with these people anymore. If I see a book contributor get more press, or if I see them grow their social media following, or grow in prestige, or sell a company, all that contributes to our collective success, because then the other 74 people in the book can like have a better product and association with those people. We have more potential reach if one of those contributors is sharing all the book's content organically, or even if we run paid advertising to their following, like their following is growing. So a lot of the book contributors have put themselves in a place where they benefit from collaboration instead of competing with other people. Same with WordPress. Again, like they set up an open sourced platform. And so the definition of open source is the fact that anyone can use their software, and anyone can distribute their software, anyone can change code and then call the new thing their own. And you would think that's counterproductive to like growing a business and having success. But now, Matt, who's the founder of that, runs $1 billion company called Automatic. And, one of their softwares is WordPress, which I think has like 130 million monthly users, and, powers 26% of the sites on the internet. So, these are, you have to constantly think about where you have leverage in terms of the exponential rise of your purpose, of your mission, things like that. And I think the third that's easy to portray in a quick conversation is that it's easier than ever before to actually set yourself up to be the leader in an industry, right? Like there's new industries popping up left and right, and there will be new industries being created at exponential speed. So like you could be the first mover in VR, in artificial intelligence, or even some industries that are just starting this month. And that allows you to be one of the first people to become an expert in that field. And then you can be a leader and have exponential success and impact, even if you haven't had a decade of working experience in that industry beforehand. So a lot of the book contributors that we have benefited from being first movers in their industry, or even not even being first movers, but actually creating their own industry in the first place. And so that's an easy hack to put yourself in a position to have exponential impact and success, because if you're the first mover in something that grows exponentially as a field, then you're likely to have exponential reach as well.
Awesome, man. I think that all. So just to summarize, just so it's nice. The first one is just to think outside the box. Don't just go down the road that is set in stone. You can make your own path.
No, actually look at what everyone else is doing and then do the opposite. Because by default, literally by default, by definition, you're going to fail or you're going to have amazing success.
Right. I love it. So 2, collaboration, which I love, collaboration over competition. And one of the things that I frequently say is that in the new world, the new earth, or whatever, a society that makes any sense, can be even just for your own personal reality.
Yeah.
In the new world, there's no competition. There's only friendship. If you can think that way, things are going to work out a lot better for you.
Or you can out-collaborate the competition if you still want to have a feisty side of your
collaborate the competition. Amazing. And the last point, which I think is really great as well, is setting yourself up as a leader, understanding that because things are changing so fast. There's so many different networks and markets and niches and all that kind of thing. And for me, when I do marketing and consulting and things like that, because that was my background to kind of travel the world and do my thing. As content is king, and just whoever's current and relevant and making good content and collaborating with the people in that space, you're gonna start to rise up. You just got to pick something that you actually give a crap about.
Yeah, and the only stipulation I would put there is that it's can be a marketing technique or ploy, but it's not going to work out for you long term unless you become the subject matter expert in that new field. So if you it is a great step forward to position yourself as a leader in a certain niche, but it will not work. You will not have that exponential rise unless you actually become the subject matter expert in that new field. So an example is we have this girl, Cyrene Q, featured in the book, who's one of the biggest Snapchat celebrities and influencers. And she was one of the first, along with Sean Duras, also a book contributor, to do the Snapchat art. And they would actually draw using the tools in Snapchat. And if they weren't good artists, then if they didn't become world-class Snapchat artists, then they wouldn't have this sort of rise. They would just maybe get a couple pieces of press and then never grow a gigantic following, even as the industry rose. But because they not only put themselves in a marketing sense as unique subject matter experts, but they also became subject matter experts, then they were able to have that rise.
Yeah, you got to be legit. A lot of people are coming in and wanting to make a buck, so they are going around. And I think this is
in the words of DJ Khaled, don't ever play yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you talk a lot about social impact, social entrepreneurship, bringing more consciousness into our lives. And that's where I think that it needs to start from. So I'll kind of let you, take it from there, because I feel like that's the most fundamental and most important thing before you even, take a step in trying to create something and use all these tools around exponential growth and all your time and effort.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of your audience is probably thought leaders or up and coming aspirational thought leaders. And simply from a book standpoint, one of the decisions that led us to an untraditional path for 3 billion under 30 was the question of how do we align our purpose and our profit. And so the purpose of 2 billion under 20 and 3 billion under 30 is to unite the voice, influence, and expertise of the world's smartest and most talented millennials in order to get as many as people as possible to act on their passions. And then we want to unite these readers in the bigger mission and continue the cycle. And so that's the purpose, and the books are just the gateway drug to accomplishing this lifelong mission of getting as many people as possible to be conscious of what they're good at and start acting on that notion. But in terms of profit, in terms of aligning purpose and profit, there has to be a financial incentive tied to what you're doing, because you need to be able to live, right? Like, there's money is required to pay for food and like shelter and all that fun stuff. And business can be a great vector for scaling your mission. But when we looked at strictly books, with our first book, we had a traditional publishing deal that did not incentivize us long term to push our mission forward. We got an advance for the book, which was small. We pushed the book for the first few weeks because we were trying to get on a bestsellers list, or otherwise get awards, which could then like help us charge higher for speaking and maybe get us a better advance in the future. But after like 3 or 4 weeks of the book being out, there was just no financial incentive to sell the book anymore. And so I had these 75 book contributors who all gave me a lot of time and content to share in the book. And the mission was still strong, and I really, that's a lifelong mission. There just wasn't financial incentive to promote the book further in the same fervor that we were using it before. And so this way, by setting up my own publishing company, by publishing it in the manner that we've published 3 Billion Under 30, I'm indefinitely incentivized to sell this book, and therefore to advance the mission of sharing these stories, getting more readers to step their game up, bringing them back into the fold of top performers, and continuing that cycle. Because I can now run it as a business, and I know that if I spend $5 or $10 to market the book, I'll sell a book and I'll make X amount in return, and can perpetuate that in a business fashion. And so it is really important to align your purpose and your profit in whatever realm you're doing. But I think specifically in the book world, that's something to consider and might be helpful to a lot of your listeners.
I love that. I think it's such a simple statement, aligning purpose and profit. And I think that I think it's a core fundamental if you're going to be doing anything, especially if you are thinking entrepreneurial and creating, something that you want to create. And you talked earlier about lifestyle and lifestyle creation. This all kind of balances in, because if you're out of whack one way, you're making all the money, but you don't have any free time, or you're doing what you're passionate about, but it's not paying you anything. So you're struggling there. I guess from what you've seen and all the experts that you've interviewed and you've talked to, for me, what I find most important is finding something. So maybe any tools on finding something, and then what beliefs around that, and then maybe tools for creating that lifestyle. Because a lot of the time, you might be 2 to 5 to 10 years in a lifestyle that you love and you wouldn't trade, and then it's going to pop out into a business, and you can kind of choose to navigate your freedom as you wish.
Right. So finding problems is not the problem. You can actually use the hashtag problems in any social media website, and you will get millions of posts. And yes, some of those are jokes, but it's very easy to identify problems in the world. And you can just watch the news. You can go ask people in your community. You can ask people in your industry. There's infinite amounts of problems to solve, and the problems that are out there to solve are only getting exponentially harder to solve, which is part of my bigger mission, right? Like society has more and more pressing problems, and it's going to take a multidisciplinary approach to problem solving to actually conquer those challenges and those potential existential threats. But from an individual standpoint, the way I look at it is in a Venn diagram of sorts. And so you have like these 3 circles. I'll try and draw with my finger in the air. In one circle, you have your passions, and you can list out. You can literally do this on a piece of paper, but list out your passions. And if you don't know what you're passionate about, then take on an experimental mindset of trying a bunch of stuff in a very cheap and low time way. So dieting, for example, you could try 4 to 6 of the top diets out there and see, which one you like. And that wouldn't cost you that much money or any different than what you spend on food normally. Or if you want to try sports and get more active, then try 4 to 6 sports, 1 or 2 classes in each of them, and then keep going on the ones that interest you and stop the ones that don't. So figure out your passions in one circle, figure out your skill sets in another. So like, what are you really good at? Marketable skills. And if you don't, list your skills. And if you don't know what you're good at, then you can ask like 10 or 20 people that are close to you, ranging from mentors to friends to parents and family members, and be like, hey, what am I really good at? If you're really bold, you can even ask them, what do you suck at? And like collect all that feedback. But you can also take like more specific personality tests, like a Colby A index or StrengthsFinders 2.0, or read the book Unique Ability. And that should give you a clear picture of like your skill sets. And then the third is like, what does the market value? And the market is both a capitalistic market, like where can you make money, but also like where are your passions and your skills in demand. And so if you're like me and like you're really passionate about basketball, and like in high school I was really good at mathematics, but I knew that like I knew there was no market for me to play in the NBA because I'm not that athletic comparative to some of the people you work with, nor maybe I'm good at math, but I'm bad at writing. This is an example. I'm a writer, so I'm decent at writing. But if there was no writing prowess, maybe I can't be a journalist. But maybe there's a need in the market to be an analyst, like a statistician. Align my passions and my skill sets with like a market need, and suddenly like you find the sweet spot in the middle where you can have a new lifestyle, you can have a new job. You can figure out like an overall zone of genius is what I call it. And that can help you be conscious about your decision making. And so like for me, like my zone of genius is bringing together people and ideas to accomplish bigger things for society. And I had a mentor walk me through this like 3-step process and help me articulate that maybe 3 years ago or 4 years ago. And ever since then, it's propelled me in lifestyle and in being able to build my network very quickly, because I can articulate that value to people and know that I have it internally. I've also set up business activities that rely on connecting with top performers and perpetuating that advance. I mean, once you're really conscious about that zone of genius and go through the motions of that discovery process, you'll be in a much better spot to create the ideal lifestyle for yourself, create the ideal business situation for yourself, and onward.
That's really amazing. There's so many other questions I want to ask you around that. So would you say the zone of genius is found by doing your diagram, just checking out your passion, your skills, and the market demand, and then you're going to be able to extrapolate from that your zone of genius, and as you move forward in creating your lifestyle, your work, your business, you're going to keep tying it into that.
Yeah, and it could change. Like people change, so you can do this cyclically every year, or every 3 to 5 years. That should give anyone watching this a good start if they don't already have the consciousness like you do. And I think you would agree. Like it all comes back to consciousness. Like just think about what you're doing and why you're doing it. If you can do those 2 things, you'll be in a good spot in most situations.
Absolutely, man. Okay, so you talk a lot about the collaborations and the ability and the importance of it, and I think that you would attribute that to your, partially or a big factor to your success. So what would you suggest for somebody, because some people are introverts, they're not really great with people, or even if they're extroverts, they just don't know how to do it effectively. So what would you recommend for people wanting to connect with the people that they want to learn from or collaborate with or anything?
Yeah. So it has to be, you have to go into it looking to provide value to other people. And if you go in with that mindset, then everything else will fall into play. So if you're meeting someone in a business setting, it's not take. It's how can we have a win-win-win situation where, you feature me on your podcast, I can share it out to my network and grow your show, and you're promoting 3 billion under 30, and the audience for giving us their time is getting value. Like, it's a win-win-win type situation. And the more you can do that in your work and in community building and in meeting new people, the better off your network will be, because people will want to hang out with you because they get good feelings from you, they get good transactions from you, or otherwise good value from being around you. So that's step one. The advanced step is being conscious about exactly who you're looking to provide value to. And so, like, in your work, you've realized that, yes, you can. We had a conversation about this earlier. You're like, yes, I can help every athlete out there to improve their mental game. But you know that if you work with the top performing athletes, they will be able to take your knowledge and apply it in situations that can have, amazing improvements on their performance because they're already really good. And if they buy into what you're doing, they probably are in a position of influence where they can share your work with, a lot of other people, either of influence or just a general public. And so by that logic, you are not only going into these relationships looking to provide value to your clients or to your friends, but you're conscious about exactly who those friends are and who those clients are. And it's not bad to think this way. A lot of people think it's, you should treat everyone, you should absolutely treat everyone with respect and always provide value to as many people as possible. But we have such a limited time alive. And so it's really important to allocate that time wisely. And it's not about, I'm never a jerk to people, but I just try and align my time with the people and relationships where it can have the biggest impact, and work as close as possible to my mission. So for me, that's spending most of my time looking to provide value to top performers in my generation, as well as just like general super connectors in in the business world or in society, because I know if I can provide massive value to them, they will in turn perpetuate it to their customers, to their communities, things like that. And so by that setup, I can work with my 75 book contributors for 3 billion under 30, and they in turn influence over 50 million people collectively on social media. And so I only have to work with 75 people, not 50 million.
Right.
But the mission can be extended to 50 million plus by that consciousness and that logic.
Yeah, and I think you're bringing up an important point of discrimination, because we now can do anything. We could work any job that we think of within reason. We can choose to create any business. So we have out of infinite ability to choose one. So not to say that one person is better or worse. You're just choosing through your free will and your consciousness and thought to align yourself with the most aligned beings. Right? Because not that the other ones are bad. It's just these are the most aligned with what you want to bring forth, and that just makes sense. So I think there's such practical and applicable knowledge in there. And the one thing I want to ask, because I would love to keep asking you a lot more questions, but I know you got to run. One that I'd like to give to you would be like, what one perspective would you gift the world or people in general around mindset or success in life that you think that if everybody had might create the biggest impact possible?
It's probably just an openness to everyone else's mindsets and values and ideas. I think if we all were a little more open to knowing that we don't know stuff and learning and shutting up in conversations and letting other people talk and educate us, we'd be in a good spot. So kind of that. Another way to say that is having multidisciplinary approaches to setting up your organization, to building your community, to solving big pressing problems for society. I think we do ourselves a big disservice when, late last year in the United States, you saw everyone was shutting each other's viewpoints down in the election cycle, and that's a big disservice to Americans and to the world at large. similarly, I think if you did that in your business where you only staffed yourself with, coders, and you were a tech company, like a startup, and all your entire staff was developers of a certain ilk and background, I think long-term you'll do the business a disservice rather than having either developers of different skill sets or code stacks working for you, or if you brought in people who were behavioral experts and user experience experts to add to the team's set of experiences. The more you can do to diversify the people around you, or the people working on that mission with you, the better off you'll be. So I would love to have everyone of learning everyone else's mindsets. A very meta answer.
Yeah, very simple, very beautiful, very powerful, man. I loved it. So to wrap this up, where can people?
I wish I was also simple, beautiful, and powerful.
Yes. Where can people find out about your book that's going to be released? We're going to time it so it's released and you can go grab it, and just more about you and your work and anything that you're sharing.
Yeah, so you can nab it at 3billionunder30.com. The number 3, the word billion, the word under, the number 30.com. I think everyone who is buying the book will also get a chance to get a free audiobook version of it, as well as the 20 unedited interviews that led to the book. So we did a bunch of audio and video interviews that led to the content that is seen in the book. So all that can be or is made free to book buyers, which is some really cool stuff. And my personal stuff brand and be under Jared Kleinert. So JaredKleinert, and that's pretty much everywhere except for Instagram. Instagram is the real Jared Kleinert, but everywhere else is Jared Kleinert. And so yeah, that's 3 billion under 30 is the biggest thing I'm working on in 2017. The book just came out. If we're releasing this right along schedule, so future me is super excited about the book launch, and current me recording this is just honored to be putting in all the hard work to allow future us to be speaking about this in real time.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I just want to acknowledge you for everything that you're doing, for your intention, for all the massive positive waves you're making, and for the book, and just being inspirational and living it, man. It's beautiful and it's appreciated. So thanks so much for sharing your time and wisdom. And we'll see everybody out there next week. If you're watching this, just subscribe, check out Jared's stuff. It's amazing. Go see the book. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Thanks, brother.
Awesome. Thank you.
Peace, man.